Last day of SIGGRAPH. Today's the last day of SIGGRAPH, so it's bittersweet. There was only one production session, and that was Turning Red. I was really happy because we're ending it on a fantastic note. If you haven't seen Pixar's Turning Red, please do. It's so well done. When they were introducing the staff, beside their name, they didn't just put their face, but they put their picture, the staff's picture, when they were in their tweens. Really endearing. As always, I have more of my notes in detail in my blog. There's a link to it down below. Another thing that they had mentioned was they had a rig that enabled them to change the rig for the panda from biped to quadruped and back and forth. Traditionally, that's done through two separate assets, one that is rigged as a quad and then another rigged as a biped. For Pixar's Turning Red, they were able to create a rig, translate one to the other, so that I thought that was pretty cool. They also had a crowd software called Presto, which is proprietary to Pixar, super scalable, and they did a quick walkthrough of what it can do, and it's almost as if you could paint how much crowd or where the direction you want the crowd to go, and the animation is saved in the rig. Made crowd sim look so easy. So I'm sure it's not, but having that software is super handy. They did more breakdown of the panda itself, how they started with just one panda and then blend shape to all the other pandas based off May as the original red panda. I enjoyed all of the anime references. If you don't know, I'm also a big anime nerd. It was funny because one of the references that I saw was a house. And I was like, I wonder if I could name this anime. And then I think a week later, I started rewatching Sailor Moon, and sure enough, there's the house. Oh my gosh. So some of the anime references that they had picked up was pigment pooling in the old anime. So if you look at Sailor Moon, the 1992 series Sailor Moon, or Ranma 1/2, if you look at the surfaces of the buildings, there are pigments that are pooled in certain spots, so it's not evenly colored. So that was something that they took and put in Turning Red. Another thing that they used anime inspiration is all their effects. So they showed how they started with a 2D sketch, laying it over their animation, then converting that into 3D, which was super cool. There was also obviously a lot of emphasis on the fur, so there's a lot of sculpting involved from the animation perspective. There was an emphasis on how different 2D animation was versus 3D. So they actually had to train senior 3D animators to do principles that you usually see more in 2D animation. So one of their examples is at Pixar, usually when there is a rule where you always have two eyes showing for a character on screen in Turning Red, because they're really trying to push the 2D animation inspired look. They had a lot of like just straight profile where you only see one eyeball, and that was breaking the traditional Pixar way of animating. The way these panels work is they have sections per presenter, and at the end it is, I believe, the lighting soup. So at the end we're running out of time, and he said it's kind of like production. We're short on time, so lighting has to pick up the speed. Most of the day was spent at the exhibition hall. I spoke with all of the schools that had a booth there, and my mission being asking if their school is looking into also providing resources or courses that are specific to project management or production department within our industry, because that is something that I don't see personally, but I feel is very much needed. As you know, my mission with So You Wanna Be Prod is to get more resources out there for production. So I was very interested on what they had to say. Besides the school, there were two studios I got to speak with who also had more of a structure in onboarding production, and that was Pixamondo and Scanline. So shout out to Jimena in Pixamondo and Melissa in Scanline. So it was really good to hear that there are some support in onboarding for production, proper onboarding for production in some studios. That didn't really exist when I started my career, so it's good to hear that these big name studios are also recognizing the benefit in that and are actually going to be offering that to production staff. So that was really awesome. The one last panel that I sat through was a simulation sampler. A couple of different studios coming together and presenting some of their work on the recent films. Pixar was presenting Turning Red. Presenters are actually all wearing 4Town t-shirts. I would love to have one. They showed more of how they converted their 2D effect into 3D. One of the things that they also had to improve on, because their characters are very heavy in fur, was to having faster viz and invis toggle when they're setting up their scenes. ILM also had a presentation for Jungle Cruise, particularly their character Sancho. I think it's a ride at Disney, but there is a character there. Basically, his limbs are made out of bees and beeswax, and they showed a breakdown of his limbs, rebuilding bees and beeswax. Greta also had a presentation for Eternals, specifically for this scene where there is multiple whirlpools on the ocean because the stone thing, a giant, was coming through, and the hand coming through the ocean. Typically in effects, if they're running to simulation, they run it through a bounding box, but that didn't really sell the look because it still looked too small. One of the issues is, how do you get a reference of something that doesn't exist? So it actually required more effects in comp, and comp did projection of the foam. Well, I also stopped by to chat with IATSE. I was curious of their thoughts of how to better support production. Unfortunately, I was passed around a lot. Nobody seemed to know who best to talk to. So although they had a lot of support for artists, for the creative side, it seemed like production support is still an uncharted territory. In the end, I did finally speak to someone who did have an advice. Be clear with your employer how many hours you're willing to work with or without OT. But that's all I got. And also to visit their website for more information. And I did visit the website. Still, I think the website itself is also more focused on artists and not so much for production. I hope we could grow more support for production. Prod 2 needs help. Prod 2 is part of the pipeline, and we're here too, and we need support just as anyone else who is part of the team. I was disappointed that Autodesk ShotGrid did not have any presence there, but fTrack did. So I spoke with them. fTrack, if you don't know, is competitor to ShotGrid, but the same thing. They're database management. I think they are also with Cinesync. I asked what the major differences were with them and ShotGrid, but I didn't really get much information that is not too generic. Maybe my question was too vague. So that wraps up SIGGRAPH 2022. I'm looking forward to next year. I'm not sure if I can visit. It won't be in Vancouver. I'll have to check where it's gonna be, but that's where we are here in the beautiful, oh, you can't see, Vancouver. Just trust me, it's beautiful. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time. Bye! Bonus, I lost my swag bag of stuff, which literally held all of the free merch I got. So sad.